All right. Real quick, just a couple orders of business. We're going to do Q&A at the end of the session. So as we go through, please submit your questions using the Q&A feature on the bottom of the webinar panel. And with that, I'm not going to waste any additional time. I know we're a few minutes late to getting started already. So Maya, I will let you take it away. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Peter, for the introduction and everyone's patience as we got you into the Zoom link. We're very excited to be here with the Startup CPG community to talk about the 5 things that you should be tracking in your distributor data and why leveraging this data can help you build a successful retail business. Let's see, I am Maya Blackburn, a sales manager here at Crisp, and I'm joined today by Tony Miller, our director of sales engineering, and very special guest, Paul Vogie, co-founder and CEO of Arabora, who will share with us how he and his team utilize data to drive daily decisions in Crisp. Let's see, so quick outline of today's agenda. We'll start by introducing you to Crisp, and we'll go into the 5 data points that you should be tracking and why. You'll hear from Paul on his data strategy. Tony will give us a quick demo of the Crisp platform. And as Peter mentioned, we'll wrap it up with some Q&A and maybe a special offer for folks joining today. All right, so who's Crisp? Crisp is a data collaboration platform that helps emerging brands like you seamlessly leverage data from their distributor and retail partners. We automatically ingest data from over 40 different retail and distributor data sources and make it really easy for you to access, analyze, and take action on the retail data every day. This saves lean and busy CPG teams hours per week by avoiding the manual data process and manipulation, while also helping you make more data-driven decisions. We have over 500 brands on the Crisp platform today and counting, from household names to emerging brands that are just starting off in their distributor and retail journey. Having spoken with hundreds of companies and actually coming from the industry myself, we know how challenging it is for emerging brands to get this kind of data. And we also know this type of data has historically not been the easiest to use, not the easiest to get, definitely not the easiest to make action of. So today we're going to help demystify distributor data and give you 5 things that you really need to look out for. First one is velocity. So velocity is arguably the most important metric for your sales performance. It's important that you're not only aware of your velocity, but how it breaks down by product, region, and retailer. With that information, we're able to identify, where your performance is strong, what strategies are working, what promotions are working, and what stores are a great fit for your brand. These are the metrics that matter when crafting a compelling retail buyer pitch. Velocity is measured in average units per store per week, and Crisp calculates this for you by adding up the quantity sold during a particular time period and then dividing that number by stores and numbers of weeks during that time period. Our next one is supply chain. If you're working with distributors, you really need to monitor and understand how effectively your products are getting to those stores. Monitoring supply chain metrics is how you know if there's anything that's disrupting the process along the way. For instance, Crisp's fill rate to stores dashboard makes it crystal clear if a distributor or service issue is prohibiting your products to get to those stores and on those shelves. The VP of Sales at Midday Square says that making sure DCs and retailers get product in on time is the biggest lever he could use to increase sales. And he's using Crisp to track this on a daily basis. Next one, part of supply chain is understanding your inventory. Managing and positioning your inventory effectively helps you reduce out of stocks and helps you run a leaner, more efficient business. We recommend monitoring weeks of supply so you can know how well stocked those DCs and retailers are. Equally as important is keeping a pulse on where inventory is too heavy so you can take steps to move that product before it expires. CRISP surfaces an important metric, weeks of supply, which is calculated by dividing your quantity of product on hand by your average quantity shipped to determine how long your current supply will last. All right, on to the next one, sales. Of course, we had to talk about sales. Next up is sales. We think sales data falls into two different categories: top level trends that give you a big picture of your business, and then the details where you can see what events are impacting your business by product, region, retailer, chain. To help you understand your top level trends and overall demand, CRISP harmonizes distributor data across UNFI and KeHE, as well as across retailers. CRISP also charts that data over time to help you understand if there's any seasonal trends within your product. And with a strong handle on overall demand, you can work backwards to plan everything from a successful promotion to your promotional schedule, production schedule. And the team at Split Nutrition says they use CRISP to identify top accounts and prioritize weekly tasks, coming in to CRISP once a week just to kind of understand what's moving, who they need to follow up with, and stuff like that. And finally, my personal favorite, voids. Voids are an issue that can happen at the store level or across the supply chain when working with distributors. Once you identify a potential void, you can work with buyers to rectify that issue. But identifying that issue is really hard to do, especially if you run with a lean team. That's why CRISP has built a voids model for distributor and retail sources. We can use machine learning to analyze 13 different data points on past sales to help you identify areas, retailers, stores where a product should be selling, but for whatever reason isn't. In a recent case study, SunButter shared that they saved over $250,000 this year alone by identifying and resolving voids throughout the CRISP platform. Now, you might be thinking, this is all good and great, but what does CRISP actually look like for a CPG brand, and how do they use it day to day? I'm pleased to introduce Paul Voge, founder and CEO of Arbora, to help us answer that question. Paul, thanks so much for joining us.
Hello, great to be here.
So I know we've been working together for quite a while. What did your data process look like before CRISP?
Yeah, we were sold, like a lot of emerging brands, we started in the natural channel, which mostly was broadline distribution, so KeHE and UNFI. And both of those large distributors have their own kind of internal tool that's somewhat helpful or not that helpful, depending on the retailer you're in or which of those distributors you're talking about specifically. But it mostly meant we ran a lot of reports. I mean, we ran probably, I don't know, several hours of reports per week per distributor. And sometimes you're kind of guessing and checking because the data doesn't get updated as frequently. It's not as easy to read. In UNFI's case, you have to buy it as well. So for a while, we were kind of holding out longer before we decided to buy that data. But just kind of a mess. And the more retailers you sell into, the more data pulls you have to do. And that was like the bane of my existence, and normally done between like 1 and 3 in the morning. So it wasn't great.
Flying blind in the middle of the night, huh? It does not sound fun. What does your data process look like today with CRISP?
So one, we rarely, if ever, go on those retailer sites, which is great, or sorry, distributor sites, which is one, just helpful from a mental health standpoint, because CRISP is nice and delightful to use, and KeHE and UNFI's systems are not. The second is we can set up notifications. You can set up all sorts of custom reports in CRISP to understand, actually that midday squares quote you had is totally accurate, of when we know we're launching in a new chain. We just launched in Wegmans in the Mid-Atlantic, and there's 2 UNFI distribution centers they pull from. And of course, the retailer tells you what day you're going to hit the shelf, but you also know that you need to have product in the DCs and you need to watch for the POs coming in. And for us, we run FOB, meaning the distributor comes and picks it up from us and drops it off at their warehouse. So seeing all 3 of those different things line up, the order getting placed, the order getting picked up, the order actually getting depleted from the warehouse to the store, they all should happen seamlessly, but they don't. So often we have gentle nudges from us to the distributor or us to their transportation team, or us to the retailer apologizing on behalf of the distributor. And none of that feels very good, because the truth is the longer out the delay, or the longer the reset, the less revenue you collect. So just having tools at our disposal to be able to kind of fight against all of the different parties affecting our own revenue is super helpful.
Yeah, no, I love that. And love seeing that you could have the whole picture, right, from kind of start to finish, and see if there's anything falling through the cracks. I'm sure that's important. Why is having a handle on distributor data so important for Arbora?
For us, I'd say, it's how we build our forecasts. It's how we kind of assess our sales team, our brokers, our outside merchandisers. It's how we know that the brand is growing the way we want it to grow. It's how we know which SKUs are doing the best. We actually now do buy SPINS data, but before we did buy SPINS or Nielsen or IRI or anything, all you're looking at are distribution, like just depletions from distributors. Hey, how many cases did we ship to Unify York or KeHE Stockton or Unify Rockland, whatever it is, whichever distribution center. And that ends up being some sort of litmus test for your business. And then going one level further, seeing, okay, how many cans did this retailer buy? It doesn't tell us how much they sold at the register, but it's somewhat of a leading indicator, or there's a tail on it that you can use to kind of guess the next year. But all of it is a little bit reactive and not that accurate. With Crisp, it's pretty great in that, particularly when used with data from the register, we can take our SPINS data, have it make sense with Crisp. We can see as velocities increase, we should see an increase in amount on hand from the distributors. The truth is, they don't really care if you go out of stock. It's like not a controversial thing to say. In our case, we are a footnote of a footnote of a footnote to KeHE and UNFI's revenue. So if Arbora goes out of stock, no big deal. We'll get back in stock in 2 or 3 weeks. To us, that's a massive deal. That's a huge percentage of our revenue we just missed because we weren't on top of it. So even though the only person that's paying you when they pay you in this business is the distributor, you do end up having to do a lot of the retailer and the transportation team for that distributor's job, just to make sure you're staying ahead of things. So for us, that means kind of controlling our own destiny and our own data.
Yeah, no, but what are some aha moments or insights you found using Crisp, or any examples specifically that you could share with us?
Yeah, let me think. One I was just referencing. So obviously, most retailers and most distributors no longer have a human kind of saying, I think this product will move 2 units per SKU per store per week, 5 units. They're going totally off of just an algorithm that's telling them, hey, here's how much we think. And when you launch in a new retailer, they're taking a stab at it. They have no idea. They look at like-minded products, or I'm convinced sometimes the buyers or their robot counterparts just like pick a random number. So for us, when we launch in retailers in the non-summer months, what that can mean is KeHE or UNFI or other distributors decide, hey, we have to buy enough for Arbora to sell 3 or 4 cans per SKU per store per week for this retailer. In the summer months, our velocity can double or triple. And often the algorithms for those distributors do not double or triple. So there was a real world example where last summer, we had launched nationwide at Sprouts. It's one of our best retailers, 400 something stores, mostly around the Sun Belt and the West Coast. And we just found out, hey, wait, KeHE doesn't have nearly enough product on hand. They have enough product on hand if we were launching in December, but it was late May, early June. And thankfully, we're able to get ahead of it and kind of twist their arm to order another huge production. It caused another production run, caused a huge order, but it did keep us from going out of stock during our best months of the year. Because of course, if you go out of stock on the shelf during your best months of the year, I mean, it's even more painful. You're missing out not just on a few cans, but several cans. So that was a real world example of, I don't know how many dollars Crisp saved us, but certainly a lot.
Well, I love that, and love to hear how you've utilized this data to have those conversations with the distributor to kind of hold them accountable.
Of course.
We focus pretty heavily on distributors and distributor data so far. How have you used Crisp to prepare for retail buyer meetings?
Yeah, I'll say some of those retailers that do not report to SPINS, it's really hard to figure out, hey, what is like a compelling data story for them. So for some of those, we're able to show, hey, look, here's how we've been depleting inventory out of your warehouses. Some of those retailers, they want to know, how are you performing in rest of market? Crisp has like really both easy to use and nice looking reports to show, hey, look, here's just a basis of how we've grown. In particular, with retailers that said no the first time we tried and we're coming back a second time, it's helpful to kind of ground them in what's changed from the last time we talked. And it's really great to be able to show, hey, actually, we used to move X number of cases out of this warehouse or Y number of cans through a similar store. And now take a look. And here's a really easy way of showing it. So I think retailers find that data really compelling of they are naturally risk mitigants. So anything that makes it a less risky decision of buying a new product is what a retailer will do. So if you can make it seem like not just is this not a risky decision, you'd be stupid not to buy our product. Here's why. Look at this graph. That is like spoon feeding. It's like a drive-through for them. It's like, okay, great. I guess we have to say yes. So that's been our experience.
No, I love that. Especially just having that data, right? It makes you a better partner for the retailer. Everyone's on the same page. Trust is there. Love that. And lastly, when it comes to data, what advice do you have for the brands on this call?
Gosh, I would say, particularly when you're a new brand or not even just a new brand or a brand that is in a new channel, you're getting evaluated so many different ways, and it can feel like it's not really in your control. It feels a little bit like you're trying out for a sports team. You don't really know what they're looking for. So you're going to jump the highest and run the fastest, and you hope that is what they're looking for, but you're not actually sure. We have found that as in the early innings of building this business, of course, you're selling not on data or on traction, but you're selling on passion and product and ingredients and, being differentiated. And that's amazing. That is kind of where you have to start, because that's kind of all you have. We have certainly found as we've grown and we have great data stories from specific retailers, it's just like a way better way of selling things. Yes, of course, we like talking about our ingredients and our differentiation and our brand and what customers think of us, and why these cans are going to make the retailer more money than the cans to the left and the right. But what is the best data to show is just, hey, look, we own our data. We're happy to show you a like-minded retailer and how we performed. And that is just a way easier way of selling into a store. So owning your data and knowing your data really, really well, particularly on the fly as you're meeting with retailers or prospective distributors or investors or anyone else for that matter, is a really important tool. I didn't even talk about it from an investor relations perspective of, knowing exactly what you're moving at every distribution center, every retailer, every week of the year, by SKU, by price, et cetera. If you don't know your data well, I mean, it's kind of crazy that a retailer or investor would be interested in getting to know it well. So own your data and use it wisely.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I think that's great advice, right? It's all about telling that story. There's so many great brands out there with a great brand story, great ingredients, but having the data to back it up too is so important. Paul, it's always such a pleasure. We love working with you and your team. Now I'm excited to introduce Tony Miller, Director of Sales Engineering, who's going to show us a demo of the Crisp platform, as well as a couple use cases that we've discussed.
Awesome. Thank you, Maya. I will share my screen here. And as it comes up here, I'm going to go through a few different things in the platform, what it looks like. We've created a demo data set to kind of show off what can the actual platform do and what are you going to see when you get in here with your own data. All of these dashboards are built in a way where they're easy to use. You can kind of click to sort, click to filter. They're all going to start with a high level overview and get more and more granular as we're going through. So starting out here and kind of get a base level understanding of what we're seeing, we're in KeHE, we're looking at year-over-year sales, we're looking at what's happened in the last 12 months. I can come in here and understand a high level, have we grown in what we've shipped out? Have we grown our dollars that we've shipped out? So when we're looking at KeHE, it's all shipments from those KeHE warehouses out to the actual retail locations, ship to locations. I can look at things by product. I can see I'm up 8% in a dollars perspective, but pretty flat when it looks at my year-over-year quantities that I've sent out through KeHE. As we start looking at these, maybe I want to dive into what's happening by chain. So I have things broken down by chain, by DC, by product class, and down at the very bottom, I have everything laid out by actual store level, item level, sales information. So if I'm in here, the first thing that jumps out at me as I'm looking at this is Sprouts is down, right? Our overall sales are up through KeHE, but Sprouts is down both in our quantity shipped and our dollars shipped. So let's click on that. Let's understand what might be driving this. Is it a couple of particular items, or looks like it's most of our items are seeing some declines? Well, let's focus more on, is there a particular DC? The Chino DC is the largest DC for Sprouts that we're seeing so far out of KeHE. and they're having significant declines. Well, now I have a long list of store level, item level, shipment information for all of my products that are going to those Sprouts Farmers Market locations out of the Chino DC. I can simply come over here, hit those three dots, download this data, pull it out into Excel to work with my brokers, whoever manages this, understand what those stores and items are that we need to focus or push on. Maybe you want to run some demo or trial programs there, different things we can do to help get some of those sales up and drive some growth there. I can also say, well, who else is shipping out of Chino? Are there other products that are shipping out of Chino that maybe you want to introduce into Sprouts as we're looking at some of this stuff? So I just left that select with Chino. Now I have my list of everywhere else that's getting those shipments, the locations and the heat map, as well as, well, what do those sales look like by product? So quick and easy to kind of get in and get out of what it is I'm looking for. It goes much further than just sales. So within KeHE, I can look at coming in and understanding, well, what is my actual fill rate to those stores? How is KeHE doing on my behalf to these actual retailers? I can look at it and understand, well, what is my fill rate over time? Tracking that and understand where we're seeing significant dips in that service level from KeHE to those retailers. And what is that impact? What is that potential lost sales? So what is essentially the dollar amount of those quantities that are unfulfilled to those actual retailers? I can look at it and understand, well, what is it by product? What products have the worst fill rate if I want to see where we have that impact? Which ones have the largest potential lost sales from a dollar perspective? Or what are the largest amounts of quantity unfulfilled as we're looking at those from a units perspective, where we're seeing issues of getting those units to those stores? Again, as I scroll down, it gets more granular. Maybe you want to focus on those Sprouts stores again, because maybe we have a line review coming up and we know that there is a particularly large impacted item here that had about $275,000 of potential lost sales. I might click on these and link up and understand, well, what are these actual store locations that were most impacted from a potential lost sales perspective? If those are on the chopping block, I now have a little bit of additional ammunition when I'm talking to the actual buyer at Sprouts to say, you know, this Philadelphia store with this particular keto coffee item, we should have had an additional $11,000 worth of sales based on what you ordered, but KeHE was not able to fulfill those orders. So it lets me kind of help put an additional story together when I'm defending some of my assortment, as well as putting some pressure back on KeHE or whoever it is, my partner is at KeHE, to say, look, what's going on? Here's what we missed out on. How do we help fulfill these orders when these actual retailers are ordering them? Helping us be a good partner at whatever retailers it is we're working with. To me, this kind of goes hand in hand directly with, well, what are we seeing from a inventory perspective? What do I have from a what's on hand, from a dollars on hand, a weeks on hand, my quantity on hand, total high level? What are those? As well as when this report was last updated. I can see it by product, picturing what my dollars are on hand, that calculated weeks of supply. I also have the ability to understand what's on an open PO and what's on open sales order out of the actual KeHE DCs. Do we have enough on hand to meet the demand that's sitting there? It gets more detailed of understanding what it looks like by DC, as well as KeHE gives us information to understand how far things are out from code date. Understanding as things are creeping up from that 60-day to 30-day window to being close to that code date information, maybe I want to take action on that, run additional promotion, or look at things from this forecasted inventory at risk report to say, when this particular sell by date hits, we're expected to have almost 17,000 units on hand. What can I do to drive my velocities for this keto coffee product at the Fort Lauderdale DC? Again, at the bottom, I have the detail section to see by DC, by product, what are my on hands? If this is me and my data, I'm coming directly over here to say, well, where do I have the largest PO and does it make sense? I have 11,000 units going somewhere where I have 3.8 weeks of supply. Probably feel okay about that without doing any additional research. The inverse, what do I have going out? Do I have enough to meet that demand? And do I have enough to then replenish that DC? It looks like we're sitting pretty good at that Bloomington DC for this 4-pack keto coffee. I have, 8,000 units coming in, 4,400 units going out, and 9,000 on hand. I feel really good about that situation, preparing for these orders as they're ready to go out the door from KeHE. We can also look at things of what's going on at the actual retailers. So if I come in here and say, what's happening from a velocity perspective at Whole Foods, I can really dive into this to essentially understand, where are my strongest velocity stores or regions? Or maybe we're pitching a new item to Whole Foods. So I've got this great velocity data and we want to go even bigger in this energy drink category, right? We want to go from a adding a 4-pack of my original flavor in a 16-ounce. Well, where are my best stores, my best regions within Whole Foods? Let's make that selection of the original flavor 16-ounce. I can understand, well, what are my velocities over time? Is there a seasonality to this? But more importantly, what are my best regions I want to pitch when I'm pitching this to Whole Foods? We know that they really like to roll things out and test things by those Whole Foods regions. So I can go a couple ways. I can say, look, my Northeast and North Atlantic regions are my strongest regions from both a units and dollars velocity standpoint. Or maybe I want to really curate a list of here are the best stores we think we should be in. I, with one click, have now a list of here are my best stores I project velocities to be for this larger pack size of this particular product. Again, hit these 3 dots, hit download data, and now I have these things really at my fingertips to share this list with Whole Foods, share this list with my inventory or demand planning team to say, here's the stores we think will have the best velocities, the regions that'll have the best velocities as we launch similar products. The last thing I'm going to touch on is, Maya said her favorite, and also something that's kind of near and dear to my heart would be voids. So understanding based on what's happened in the past, where products have sold, where we might have some voids at risk. So what we do here is we use some predictive analytics to say, based on prior sales, velocity, distribution things, here's where we think this product should be selling. If we think that product should have seen sales and it didn't, that's what shows up as a void. Again, I can see these at a very high level, understand how it's changing over the last 4 weeks versus, this current week. And really where you kind of dive into this one is what's happening by retailer. Maybe I want to focus on this Wegmans account to understand what's happening in these actual Wegmans stores. Is there some regionality to it? Or do I want to really come down here and look at the details where I can actually see what Wegmans store number, what city and state it's located in, what product we're looking at, what is that average weekly sales dollar velocity for this product in that particular store, and how many weeks has it been since this product was scanned through the register at this store? This is my hit list of whether I'm working with my merchandising team that's in the stores helping fill shelves, whether I'm working with my supply chain team that services these stores directly, or if I'm working with a unifier KE who kind of manages the shipments to these stores for me. This is my hit list of those most valuable stores I want to follow up on that haven't seen sales that we know should have. I can directly take action on this to make sure we get these stores back in stock and we don't lose any more from a sales perspective. And more importantly, not on the chopping block when it comes to line review season next time, because we have these out of stock issues. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Maya.
Thanks, Tony. All right, let's get this shared again. Okay. Move it over to this side. All right. Okay, cool, perfect. Let's see. Thanks, Tony, and thanks to everyone else joining us today. We'd love to help you leverage your distributor and retail data as well, and put some of these best practices in place. So we're offering the Startup CPG community a free 60-day trial, no strings attached. This includes unlimited user licenses to your entire team, including third parties like brokers or merchandisers, as Tony mentioned, have access, onboarding, training, and support. And in addition, we're offering Startup CPG members an exclusive 15% off through July 31st. You can go visit gocrisp.com/startupcpg to learn more and start your free trial. And that's it from our team. Peter, I'll hand it over to you and we'll do some Q&A.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, great content. We do have a little bit of a couple questions, and while I'm asking these, just encourage anyone else who has questions about the content today, throw them into the chat or the Q&A. The first one I will kick over to Tony. Tony, how does the data actually flow into Crisp? I know that there's a lot of different connectors that Crisp can work with, but can you talk a little bit about how Crisp is actually getting that data? The question here mentions, is it, API that needs to be established with the small stores, or versus Sprouts? Can you talk a little bit about how that data actually gets into the platform?
Yeah, so we tap in directly to the retailer distributor portals that you would probably be logging into today. So we use your data access essentially to automate the process of pulling from those. It might look like an automated headless browser that goes in and does things at a very grandiose, large scale to do it quickly and automate that for you, or it might be an automated API for those really the more high tech retailers and distributors who have that kind of access. We are able to handle all of that. We automate that process. All of our data updates at the exact same cadence that these actual portals themselves update. So if, KeHE has some reports that are updated daily, we're updating those same reports daily. Unify is more of a weekly, and a lot of the retailer portals themselves are also updated daily. So we handle that at that same cadence that the data is available to you.
Awesome. Great. Okay, question for Maya and maybe Paul, if he's still on the phone, maybe you might want to weigh in, but for a new emerging brand in, call it the first year of launching, this attendee says, hey, it seems a little bit early for us to spend on a platform like this. At what point should our brand start considering working with a tool like Crisp or buying SPINS or IRI data? I think those are probably two separate questions. Maybe we can talk to separately, but what is a trigger or milestone that means it's time to invest in something like this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll start and then hand it over to Paul, see if he has got anything else to add to it. But, I think as soon as you start shipping with one of these major distributors is a good time to start at least looking into this data, whether you're looking at it with Crisp or in their raw portal. It is very important to know what's coming and going. You worked hard for that distribution. So flying blind or not looking at it at all is probably not the best solution. I would say, a lot of times, right, if you're working with a distributor, you've got that data already. So having a good understanding of at least what the distributor is sending to the retailer will help you quite a bit. I'd say, it might be a little early for SPINS or IRI, only because, that will give you the what, right? So to, one of Paul's examples, like maybe we're down at Sprouts, I can see that in my SPINS data, looking at scan data of what went through the register, but I need to understand the why behind that. Is it because KeHE isn't shipping to Sprouts in a timely manner? Is it because my fill rates are down? That's really what's going to help you drive the business. So I'd focus probably on the distributor and retail data first, and then start looking at syndicated packages.
Yeah, I'll say on the SPIN side, I don't know. I've had this question asked a few different ways, and of course, SPINS is increasing their price every year, so it's kind of like, I don't know how that changes my answer, but it does for some reason. I would say there are some retailers you can sell into that will give you free data. That's just true. Like, they're not going to advertise it, but if you're a nice person and you ask, maybe the buyer sends you data of you or the category or both every quarter. And that saves you from a huge, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 price tag on SPINS. For us, we bought SPINS probably when we were in, I'll call it like 3 marquee national retailers, where it was really important for us to watch velocity. So Sprouts, Publix, Wegmans. There's an argument that maybe we bought it a little too late. We were in a lot of independent stores, some of which Infra and NCG reported to SPINS, a lot of which did not. I would say, but to this question, definitely don't buy SPINS if you're in less than 1,000 stores or not in one marquee national retailer. That is a waste of money. But when you're in a few, and it's particularly important to track how effective promotions are, like, that's why I think SPINS is the best. Some people just get SPINS just to like see the category. I kind of think you can get that data for free from an investor or from a friend of a friend. You can always scrap that together. But for seeing how your promotions are impacting your sales, like, that ends up being the most useful tool. And when you start to have big national promotions with Unify or KeHE, because of OI periods, maybe it's 16 or 20 weeks a year, it becomes really helpful to have both your promotions versus the category's promotions versus your competitors. So anyway, that's kind of a loose answer, but I'd say better to buy it a little bit earlier than you need it than being too late and having the price go up. And the price goes up every January. So if you're right on the edge in December, pull the trigger.
I'll add on the Crisp side, as a Crisp user as well. I will say specifically the velocity reporting that you can get to through Crisp is a really great stand-in lieu of being ready to purchase syndicated data from SPINS or IRI or Nielsen. And so if you do have distributor sales, it's a great way to get to a velocity metric that otherwise might be hidden from you without that syndicated data too.
Mm-hmm. And to Paul's point, a lot of retailers also offer, their POS data for free, which we can put into Crisp, right? So like Whole Foods is a big one. You're not going to get the competitive view, but at least you could track down to the store level daily, how your scans are happening, where they're happening, what regions are doing the best. Maybe you ran a demo at Whole Foods. You can track all of that with the Whole Foods portal data that we bring into Crisp.
The best thing you have if you're an emerging brand is you can just feign ignorance. So I've been amazed how many buyers have been like, hey, I'm just wondering if you can send me the sparkling water category data. They shouldn't say yes to that under any circumstance. But if they're just like, oh, this guy's an idiot, we'll send it to him. So never pretend to be dumb. It helps.
Awesome. Well, I don't think we have any other questions. I'll give it another second and see if anything rolls in, but if not, I will allow any parting thoughts from this team here before we part ways.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
We love Crisp. Happy to share our experience if anyone has more specific questions. You can find me on the internet pretty easily.
Awesome.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Maya. Thanks, Tony. Great session. For those that were asking, this recording will be available. We're going to send out an email with information on the Crisp offer and making sure that we include the webinar recording as well. So if you missed a portion of it or want to go back and review anything that Maya or Tony or Paul said, you will have the opportunity to do that. So with that, thank you all and enjoy the rest of the day.
Take care. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks, guys.